Right.
So
And
yeah.
it's also military pensions,
Mm-hmm.
government pensions, things like that. Judicial pensions, they're tied to the CPI. Okay, there's something else devious about the CPI. It's statistical in nature. They reason that if roast beef went up a lot in price, but chicken did not, then you would switch to chicken because it's logical. Even though you might be a Texan and you ain't going to give up your steak for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they did the substitution, and I had a joke in my early years of the newsletter. I'd say, well, you know, they switched from roast beef to Alpo dog food. Okay, because it's logical. And, you know, your kids aren't going to know.
Right.
You put it in the stew, and it's all delicious. Put some carrots and onions, and you're good to go. Okay. What we've got now is, I believe, a fracturing of the supply chain. And I noticed way back, okay, you know, we've done 2 years of this nonsense now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't say last year anymore.
No.
Because 2 years ago, I was looking at news stories like, oh my gosh, the migrant farm workers are being labeled as COVID, sick with COVID, based again on this invalid PCR test. Okay, I got to break on a tangent quickly. Germany did something very revealing a year ago. They decided to bring down the number of cycles on the PCR test, and suddenly they had about a 70% decline in their COVID cases. And they stopped it, saying, unbelievably, we don't want to put the public at risk. So they cycled back up, you know, like 30, 36 times on the PCR, which makes everybody look sick because everybody's got some antibodies from a previous sickness. And in Marion, Ohio, I think it was like 96, 92% of the prison population tested positive for COVID, and almost nobody was sick. All right, the supply chain. I learned that a lot of migrant workers and a lot of farm workers. Do you remember the 5 million pounds of potatoes that were plowed under in Montana?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the Idaho border. There's Montana has potatoes too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Not just Idaho.
Okay, so they were short on workers, so they had to destroy their crop. Okay, there was a lot of that going on. And then you heard stories about, you know, Hormel, pork. They had an outbreak of COVID a year and a half ago, and they had to shut down the plant. And what's the diagnosis based on? The PCR, which is not a diagnostic test. Okay, so I knew way early, they're going after the supply chain. And then you heard something very devious as soon as the Biden show. I will not call it the Biden administration because I do not believe Biden is the president.
I call it a pretendency.
The pretendency, yeah, the resident Biden. but you know, it's not Biden. It's not Biden. I think he had a stroke, a very powerful stroke, in February of 2021. That's my best information. Then you had all these different pronouncements that again attacked the supply chain. The Biden show, that's my reference. Whoever it is playing Biden, the Biden show began to offer juicy unemployment benefits. If someone claimed, well, I'm going to drop out of my job because I'm afraid of getting COVID. Oh my gosh. Sabotage of the supply chain. What we need right now, Ron, is a massive investment into the supply chain to produce everything under the sun. I was talking to a farmer, an Iowa farmer, a few days ago on a consult. He said, Jim, you cannot get parts. You better not have your machinery break down. You can't get parts.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy a
hearing
machine.
That. Well, and they're what's the urea? It's a some sort of a solvent or some sort of an additive that goes.
A diesel component.
Yes, it's a good, and it's made out of urea, and they can't get that. And if you don't have that ingredient to add to the fuel, then you could get stuck out on the side of the road, and you could be pushing the engine in full throttle, but you're just crawling, because I'm not really sure
Okay,
how that works.
I heard it's a little different from that, but I'm
Okay.
really not certain. I heard that your engine still works, but the government won't let you drive your truck because you're a polluter.
Okay. I
Now,
hadn't heard that. But
Okay, in California, in LA ports, they have another attack on the supply chain. They said any truck that was constructed, the serial number and that issuance of the new machine, the new engine.
Mhm.
If it's before 2015, they won't let it into the Long Beach port facility.
They're not letting people load?
They won't let the truck into the port because it's pre-2015 and it's therefore a polluter. Okay, this is the California system, and that's your state, and it's loaded with Chinese bribery. And I heard an actual two stories. We're not mathematical here, but it's still quite interesting. There was a commissioner of the water commissioner in California. He diverted the water from rainfall to the sea in order to exacerbate the water shortage. He did not let it go to the reservoirs.
I've heard that. I've heard multiple reports of that, actually.
And that was a Chinese bribe.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was another one. This is okay. I got to be careful because I don't want to give it away because my source might actually get harmed. I mean, shot.
Understood.
I've got someone who I'm really quite close with for a number of different things. And he said to me, after Governor Newsom was arrested in November on child torture charges, he went to Guantanamo, eventually was convicted, and my client called up the lieutenant governor and said, do the right thing, have a press conference and announce that Newsom has been arrested for child torture. And the lieutenant governor said to my client, are you effing crazy? I get $50,000 a year to keep this thing going.
He gets $50,000 a year to keep everything going. That's it? Just 50,000? I mean,
I'm struggling now. I'm now beginning to wonder if my memory is not serving. Maybe it's 50,000 a month.
I mean, that sounds a little bit more reasonable. I'm just saying, $50,000 a year.
I'm looking back. I can't refer to my notes. I've got a lot of things that are just memory.
All right.
And I remember thinking, well, if the lieutenant governor got that, or was it 5 million a year? Oh gosh, it was a 5. There was a 5 in there.
Let's say it's a large number.
It was a big number, and it included a 5. I remember my thought was, well, if he gets that 5, then how many other officials get something similar?
Right.
And maybe they get a little less because they're not ranked as high as the lieutenant governor. But my source said to me, it's a lot of people in California because the Chinese want to see the Californians killed off by the vaccine so the Chinese can colonize.
Well, okay. So,
oh boy. Wow. Ugly stuff.
No, crazy stuff. What's your, how much time, and I know you can't get this 100% correct, but if your best guess, how much time do we have left before, I mean, we're already starting to see fractures, but at what point does the dollar, at what point do we go into a hyperinflationary period?
I think we're in hyperinflation now.
Okay, so I guess let me ask the question in a different way.
Okay.
When do I need to have a wheelbarrow ready to take cash to go to?
I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. What that whole analogy of Weimar in Nazi Germany was a small microcosm called Germany,
Mm-hmm.
with an enormous explosion of money, production, printing, and a limited supply because of the war. The farms weren't working right. The farm workers were carrying a rifle on the front. Okay, everything was exacerbated to the extreme in Nazi Germany. What we have now is a lot of people working, a lot of people supplying, a lot of people earning money, but it's debilitated and it's injured. Okay, one of my favorite questions to answer is, when are we going to start seeing some big problems? And they define their problem. I say, well, we've already had that a year or two ago. Did you not notice? Okay, we started seeing nasty inflation in the US economy a year ago. Okay, so you're not going to need a wheelbarrow, but I have clients who told me that when they used to buy a Big Mac burger in California, it would cost something like $3.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's 20.
I haven't seen a Big Mac cost 20. I actually, believe it or not, I'm not a McDonald's goer, but ironically, I went there a week ago, and a Big Mac was like, I think it was like $5.
$5. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I got an exaggerated story from somebody. Maybe it was an isolated area of California, but this client said, Jim, I couldn't believe it. They were asking $20, and I said, forget that. I'll have your chicken fillet thing.
Yeah, that's
okay. Anyway, all right. I do get some exaggerated stories, and I have to confirm them, and it's very hard on my side.
Sure.
Very hard. Okay. The question is, how much time before things really break? How much time before we're in a panic? And I believe that at the end of 2021 last year, we were approaching the panic time. We were approaching severe shortages. We've had a year or more of shortages of plywood,
mm-hmm.
Plastic pipe, PVC piping, and a number of other things that you would typically find at the hardware store, but they're not there. Now you've got a new development out of China because of the Omicron, which has killed nobody. The Chinese have shut down all their ports. Because of something that's killed nobody, the Chinese have shut down their port. What they're doing is they're sabotaging the global supply chain.
Mm.
Okay, now you've got all kinds of things like housewares, like Tupperware items, the little mat where you dry your dishes, hardware, nuts and bolts. They're all going to be in shortage.
Mm. Well, they are. Some of that stuff is shortage now.
Yeah.
I watch my share of preppers on YouTube, and just out there, and there's several people that I watch. What they do is they on a daily basis they go out to their local stores, or they hit different areas of stores in their areas, Midwest, East Coast, South, and they go and they actually videotape what's going on in the grocery stores, and they're seeing empty shelves, and they're seeing rising prices, and they keep track of a lot of this stuff. And if people don't have a lot of stuff now, it's almost at the point where you're too late. It's not.
In the United States, that's true. In Canada and the United States, that's true. Mm-hmm. I want to report on something. I want to cite something that was really quite fascinating. It was about 2010, 2011, 2012. There was a fellow named Chapwood. And what he did was he had 500 items, and he would sample in 30 different cities in the United States, these 500 items, like an apple, or, saran wrap, or 1 hour of an air conditioner repairman, all across the board. And what he concluded was that we had a price inflation in smaller cities of 8 to 10% and larger cities of 10 to 12%. When the shadow government statistics was citing something almost exactly the same, 9 or 10. That was a nice confirmation of the Chapwood CPI basket of goods. Okay, let me address your question about when. if we continue without a reformed financial system like a new dollar, I believe in the next 3 months, we're going to have some cataclysmic events. If we don't have a reform of the currency that's backed by something besides Wall Street fraud, and that's my joke, we're not backed by anything, so what are we backed by? Fraud.
Right.
We're going to see unbelievable events in the bond market where there's going to be a lot of stories about how the US government bought its entire issuance through proxies. They're doing it now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they're covering it up by saying, well, it's so-and-so bank that they bought the treasury. But if you look closely, you'll see that it's via the New York Fed. That the New York Fed is the crime center. Okay, if we don't have a reform to the banks, the dollar, and the US government debt structure, we're going to see unbelievable events, and they're going to be so bizarre, Ron, that you're going to have to use your imagination to come up with what type of surprising event will occur. And I don't think it's going to be like, well, the stock market goes down 60% in 2 weeks. No, that's easily covered by printing money and buying stocks through the New York Fed. It's going to be more like you got a string of banks and people can't get their money out. Bank runs.
Mm-hmm. Bail-ins.
Well, maybe not bail-ins as much as they got slammed by their own fractional banking system methods, and there's not enough liquidity, and the Fed cannot handle it. I did not say for big banks, for banks, mid-sized banks. You might have a bunch of hedge funds that go kaput because they're doing leveraged arbitrage on things like, okay, there was a big event. It took place in August, September, October of 2019. The repo market for the bonds, it exploded. And what you were seeing was a march toward $1 trillion per overnight being granted to the banks who post their treasuries as collateral because they're insolvent within their own banking system, their own banking structure. I did my digging. I called Rob Kirby. I did more digging, more reading, read Zero Hedge articles. I made it a real point in September and October of 19. What's going on here? And then I got a big hint. The Fed said, we're now expanding the repo window to hedge funds. I said, what? And then I learned why with the help of Rob Kirby and some others, Zero Hedge articles. It seems that the hedge funds were buying treasuries and were actually collectively responsible for 20 to 30% of the treasury purchases. Hedge funds, who are really extensions of Wall Street banks. And what they were doing was they were going long the treasury bond and they were going short on the interest rate swap derivative. And they pocketed the 0.3% and put on 50 to 60 to 80 leverage. So what's 50 times six basis points, 60 basis points? That's 30%. They were making 30% annually for floating this every single day and managing it. It's kind of like going 100 miles an hour and managing the bumps in a car. It's hard to do, and you can't handle any wind. You can't handle any bumps, and you can't handle unexpected curves. And those are the risks for the hedge funds. And what I could not get information was how many of them died. I couldn't get it. It's very tightly held information because they are extensions of the Wall Street banks.
Well, let me ask, where, I know crypto is not a big, I know that's not your wheelhouse, but doesn't crypto fit in here someplace?
I think crypto defines the future. And I am now becoming a student more and more. We talked about XRP.
Yes. Big X. I love XRP.
and the blockchain is going to put the bond fraud out of business. And I'm hoping the blockchain becomes a U.S. national election foundation table for storing the data, so that you could see a week later, there's my vote right there.
I think
it did not get changed.
You talk a lot about the white hats and the black hats, and my humble opinion is the white hats are going to win this. And the reason I'm so adamant that we're going to win is because we have the truth on our side, and the lies that the other system is based upon is ultimately going to collapse in on the weight of its lies, of all the lies that are being told to perpetuate these lies. So we are going to win, and I do believe that blockchain on a wide scale is going to be implemented on a wide variety of things, a lot of different projects out there, not exclusively XRP, but and a blockchain, there's multiple blockchains, and then there's blockchains that talk to blockchains. So yes, blockchain is going to be a huge had to have a huge role in the future economy. Maybe a better question to ask instead of blockchain would be, what happens to gold and silver, and when are we going to see like big jumps in gold and silver?
I think it's not going to be for a little while, because we need the transition to take place. For those who aren't clear on what a blockchain is, imagine your company has an accounting book, and you keep your costs, you keep your income, you register it all, you got your profit and loss at the bottom line, and your book is your company Bible for your accounting. Well, you might also have a second book, okay? And the second book is what you show the government for your tax purposes. And it's got all your fraud in it. Okay, just the fact that you got two books brings to the fore the potential for fraud being easy. The blockchain is like an electronic accounting book. And it's got slots, it's got little location identifiers, it's got timing, it's got a lot of things, some of which I don't fully understand. But it is a locked box for the accounting book.
A locked box of glass.
Of glass?
A locked box of glass, meaning it's transparent. You can see through it.
Of glass. Yeah. Right, I see it.
Yeah.
Okay. A transparent locked box. Right. I couldn't quite hear what you were saying. Glass. I hear. So we are in a position now where this is way past the 11th hour. We are deep into the 9th inning, whatever little analogy you want to use. The dollar is toast. And I, on a Nino Rodriguez show a couple of weeks ago, I pointed out like 8-10 different factors. We got a $27 trillion debt. We got over 50% of the federal budget being in deficit.
Mm-hmm.
We've got all these different financials that don't make any sense, cannot be sustained, and they're all happening here and now. We're really a dead man walking with the dollar. We've got 7 silos with Langley operating criminal enterprises, and they're all dollar cash based. You've got all kinds of things. Oh my gosh, it's mind boggling. You've got almost no investment
oversight?
grade, no oversight at all. No. You have almost no investment grade corporate bonds anymore outside the government. When General Electric lost its AAA and went to junk bond, I thought it's all junk bond. That was 2 years ago. That was my signal. We are really close to the end of the dollar. And when we got into the repo explosion of $1 trillion overnight, I said in my newsletter, we're 2, 3, 4, 5 months away from a very serious event that's going to launch the new dollar. And instead we got COVID. They had a jump shift. They moved it over. Instead of bankers being in control, it's doctors being in control. Medical doctors. Okay, we don't have much time, Ron. We're running out of time. We are dealing with a cave-in right now with the dollar. And we better follow through with some of these transition plans that you and I have discussed a little bit, where it's the old dollar moving to the digital dollar in a couple of years, roughly, 18, 24 months, whatever. And you're going to have vehicles like XRP managing the transition. And it's going to be a difficult transition. That's why it's not going to be a 2-month transition. And what's at stake here? You've got to manage trade settlement, and over 60% of it is dollar-based. You've got to manage reserve bond holdings. They call it reserve management, forex management. A country like South Korea has got a big pile of surplus from exports of Samsung, Hyundai, and they got a third one out. LG, life's good. So how do they store their surpluses? Well, they used to just predominantly store it in U.S. Treasury bonds. They're not doing that anymore. The Asians are dumping their Treasury bonds and buying gold for their Forex reserves, for their national central bank reserves. They're not Forex anymore. So you can't really call gold a Forex item in their reserves. This is fatal for the dollar. We don't have much time left. Okay, so your question about when do gold and silver go up and up and up and explode and ramp up? Well, if they didn't in the 15% to 20% consumer price inflation environment, they're not going to under the current system.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Look at the bond yield. The bond yield is 1-2% on the treasuries. I don't look at the short term. I don't look at 2-year and less. I look at 5, 10, and 20, 5, 10, and 30 year, predominantly 10-year. A funny little side story. In the 90s, I went to 5 banks and I asked the bank loan officer for mortgages, how do you determine your 30-year mortgage? And they all said the wrong answer. All 5 banks said, we base it on the 30-year treasury bond. And I told every one of them at the end of the conversation, are you aware that you're wrong? It's based on the 10-year treasury bond, because the average time to hold a mortgage, even if it's a 30-year, is 7.2 years. So they base it on the 10-year. Okay, the 10-year yield right now is like 1 point something. It's always making a charge toward 1.5, and it comes back down. I don't even know exactly what it is right now because I don't care. It's a rigged market.
Right.
You got a 1 point something percent treasury bond, and you got 15 to 20% price inflation. We've never had that kind of a differential before. The way you interpret that now is you say the real rate of interest is minus 17%.
Okay.
That's what you're earning. If you got a stack of money, $100,000, and you put it into a bank and you get a 1% yield on your CD, what is your real rate of return in view of inflation?
Well, if you said it's minus 17%, does that mean you're giving up? That it's costing you money then? That's It's like a bail-in. It's not a bail-in, but it's like a bail-in.
It's a stupid investment.
Right.
So you're better off buying a crypto. You're better off buying XRP. I believe, and I think we've had discussions on this, and honestly, you're much a better student on this topic than I am, because you're can I say Citizen XRP?
Yeah, Citizen XRP.
Okay, you're Citizen XRP, and I got a quote from you regarding oh gosh, I can't remember exactly what it was. Something about dismissing indoctrination.
Oh, yes.
Confirmation.
As I say, yeah. So it's
how's it go?
Condemnation without investigation is verification of indoctrination.
Indoctrination, right? Well, I put that in my hat trick letter because I thought that was astute. Okay, but it is looking like with every passing week, it is looking like we've got a transition period moving toward a digital dollar, but we're not going to be the only digital currency out there.
Right.
Russia and China have announced that they're going to use a different digital currency, and it's not going to be all that different. It's just going to be having different managers and different little rules.
That's right. And XRP being a neutral bridge currency, but this is why the SEC case is so important, because this technology is American technology. The technology is American technology. Well, it may not be all exclusively American technology, but Ripple, the company, is an American company, and they're the ones that are holding on to the escrow of the XRP. They're the ones that are they're the ambassadors of XRP. That it is American technology, and that's why.
What did you call that? Neutral what currency?
Neutral bridge currency, meaning that it's a bridge asset. So it's on XRP is on demand liquidity, or they call ODL. And what it does is it's so it essentially it replaces the Nostro Vosto accounts. So you'll have the bank will have a certain amount of XRP on hand, and when one digital money comes in, it's automatically in the span of 3 seconds, it's converted from one currency to another, to XRP, and then to the currency or to the fiat that it's going into, whether it be fiat or digital, whatever. But it takes 3 seconds. They can do, XRP is extremely fast. And not that I'm a big believer in being carbon neutral and all this other garbage that they talk about, which is just, it's just global communism. It is very energy efficient.
Here's my interpretation that goes hand in hand with what you're talking about. They are going to need a certain volume for the XRP to be successful in managing the transition. They have to handle trade settlement in the West. Now, they may not be called upon to do trade settlement between China and a European country. That might use the Russian-Chinese version of digital currency. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to talk to our Ripple, our XRP.
That's right.
And with a fair and stable exchange rate,
that's right.
It's not going to jump around a lot.
That's right.
But the key is for the Western trade that does use XRP, it's going to have a strong, big volume in coin market cap. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can get that is if you expand the number of coins or you expand the value per coin.
Well, and that's what, they talk about. I don't remember. God, I can't remember the gentleman's name that talked about it, but they talk if there's a deal to be made within the central banks. And I said, I still actually believe that the term central bank is going to exist in the upcoming economy. I don't believe it's going to be a central bank in terms of the nomenclature as you and I understand, in terms of it being a privately owned entity. I do believe the term central bank is going to exist, and that is essentially going to be used as it could be interchangeable with national bank. So the central bank of the United States is going to issue a currency, and the central bank of China will issue a currency. And then when you send money overseas, you send it, and the XRP will be behind the scenes swapping out the transaction, and so that you get the exchange rate. And that's what they talked about, that XRP, when XRP is used as a method of exchange, the exchange rate is going to be he said it could be anywhere from $10,000 to $35,000 a coin instantaneously, or not coin but token, because XRP is actually a token. So when when the agreed upon the transfer, when the transfer value is agreed upon between the governments, the estimated dollar amount could be anywhere between $10,000 and $35,000 a token.
Well,
we'll see.
These are scary numbers because XRP is now under 80 cents. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to expand the number of tokens and do it in an honest way. I have an interpretation. I'm glad you brought up central banks, because I've got an opinion. And it's, it's not alarming, but compare it with our views 10 years ago, and it's a little bit radical. I've got a couple of colleagues who say the banks are going to be converted into utilities. Okay. What I think the central banks are going to be entrusted to do will be to manage the flows in trade, to keep peace among partners, to be regulators to make sure that everything is done properly, and to make sure that the exchange rates at the seams, like where the East and the West have their digital coins, digital currency types, make sure that we have stability and no fraud and no conflict. What do they do now? They set the interest rate in a non-market function. They print money with no regulatory oversight, and they're watchdogs over big money movements that are basically catching people who are not part of the fraudulent system.
Right.
You got a massive shift in role for the central banks. And as a result, they're not going to be iconic leaders like Greenspan. Oh my gosh, he's so wonderful. He's brilliant. I don't understand anything that he said, but I know he's brilliant. No, he's an asshole. He's a criminal. And he was a knighted spy from England. I'm not impressed with central bankers. I'm not impressed with Christine Lagarde, for instance. I don't even think Christine Lagarde is a woman, but that's a different story altogether.
It's a whole other story.
The voice told me he was born a man, a slight man. Check that Adam's apple.
Gotcha.
But that you know, it's neither here nor there. It's just kind of a funny side story. These central banks, they all are servants to Basel. The Bank for International Settlement is often just called Basel because that's the city where it's in.
Right.
And all the different rules. When they come out with the Basel I and Basel II rules, I was thinking, who the hell are you to tell our banks what to do? Well, it's because our central bank is a Rothschild entity.
That's right.
And we follow all their rules in order not to be murdered. Not because it's the law, because they didn't want to be murdered.
Right. Right.
Okay. Crime syndicate is Basel. I actually got a client. This happened about 3 years ago, and the guy had a kind of a Swiss and German name, and his location was Basel, Switzerland. So I instantly wrote him and said, "What do you do? Are you working for the bank?" And he said, "I'm actually working for a company that's associated with the bank, and no, I don't know of any fraud. I'm really not that close. I just do some routine bank functions for clearing, etc." Okay, but anyway, the point is, Basel is going to fade away in importance and power because they strive for everything that crypto stands against.
Yes.
They want centralized power and no transparency. And that's what the big banks have now. So they can do money laundering for narcotics. Can't stop that. They can steal Native American funds.
Yep.
Can't stop that. They can do duplicate sales of treasury bonds, identical serial number. Do you know anybody who checks the serial numbers to find duplicate? Oh, I don't know. Okay.
Never.
Can't
How are you gonna?
that.
What are you gonna check it against? And
Right.
I mean, I'll say you don't have to, but trafficking of people.
Little people.
Yeah.
Yeah. All kinds, including large people.
Yeah. It's not just little people.
With women gender. Okay. We're going to see a major shift and in the central banks and the big banks for their function. And as a result, they have been slowing the process down. As they slow the process down, you got the supply chain that's becoming wrecked, gradually wrecked. Not totally, but gradually wrecked. You continue this for another 2 years, there's not going to be any supply. We're running out of time. Okay, so they held up Reggie Middleton, and I actually know someone who's talked with him, and I'm going to try to talk to him. He said, I can get you an introduction. I said, oh, great. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to cancel all your subscription payments. Okay. But the point was that the lawsuit, no. The criminal prosecution for fraud against Reggie Middleton was frivolous and baseless. They gave it up, and he now has a new DFI. It's called DFI as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, because you know some of these things better than I do. The decentralized finance is going to be a new term, DeFi. But Reggie has a coin called DFI. And it's going to be...
That's not the Veritasium, is it?
I'm not sure. I thought Veritasium was pretty much snuffed out by the U.S. government prosecution. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that.
Nor am I. So please don't take what I said as,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought the settlement with Reggie was that he had to forfeit at a low price his Veritasium, but he walked away with all his intellectual property, and he put it in his new coin called DFI, which is a very clever name, but it's going to get confused with the concept of decentralized finance. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a building blocks of decentralized finance. In other words, DFI will become a building block of DeFi. Okay. That's going to cause some trouble in communications.
Yeah.
But all right, the point is that the U.S. government tried to prosecute Reggie and failed. And he walked away with all his intellectual property. And he is going to be to the crypto financial structural world what Bill Gates was to the PC.
Well, hopefully in a good way.
Oh, I think he's going to be the antithesis of the Bill Gates monopoly evil. You watch. I'll bet you dollars to donut. That was a phrase used by
I know.
my favorite.
Jim, I'm sure that you and I can come up with a wager
that
we will agree to.
I'll bet you in 2, 3, 4 years, Reggie Middleton is going to be a multi-billionaire, and he's going to be a philanthropist and own a bank or two with a lot of largesse and commercial development for business.
Well, I believe there's quite a few people that are invested in the digital asset market. I like to call it digital assets as opposed to crypto. But I believe a lot of people who are invested in digital assets, we are entering into a period of time with the collapse of this fraudulent debt-based system. When this thing crashes and the crypto digital asset space is the phoenix that rises out of the ashes of that, people who had the foresight to be involved in that at the beginning are going to be extremely wealthy. They will be the new 1% on the other side.
Let's make an analogy. I had a friend who visited me, stayed with me in my apartment for, I think, about 3 days. And he was an owner in 2011 of Bitcoin. And he took it all the way from 100 to about 280, and he sold out. He said, Jim, I tripled my money.
Mm-hmm.
What did he lose out on? Okay.
That's quite a bit. I'll tell you, this is how I say, I think I told you this, that your interview with Jean-Claude back in I think it was early August of 2019. That was the video that, or 2020 rather, that was the video that set me down this rabbit hole of digital assets. It's all your fault, but I harken back to a point in time when I had a friend of mine who was like, dude, you got to check this stuff out, this crypto stuff. You got to check this out. And I was prepared to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, and it was a penny. Bitcoin was a penny, and I was going to buy $100. That would have been 10,000 Bitcoin. All right. But I couldn't figure it out, and I gave up too easy. But in 2017, that 10,000 Bitcoin, that $100 investment of Bitcoin would have been worth $200 million. And today it'd be worth what, $400 million. I don't know. I didn't check the price today. It's like it's insanity.
That is my point. That is my point. Now, right now, I know some people, present company included, who invested in XRP and realized some serious gains.
Yeah.
And here we are at 75 to 80 cents, but it might peak in a year at 10, 12, or 15, which would be a 20-fold increase in a year plus.
Right.
Okay, here's my conclusion point. There are a lot of people who don't trust the digital assets. They don't trust Bitcoin. They don't trust any token. They don't trust any of it. It's mainly because they don't understand it.
That's right. That's exactly well said.
And for me, between 2013 and 2017, I saw Bitcoin, I saw Ethereum, I saw Litecoin, I saw a lot of these things, and I wasn't very interested in it because I knew the dollar had more time to go before it blew its top off. I had to focus on the dollar. I didn't have enough time. I'm a company of one. I'm a, chief cook and bottle washer. Golly, I joke and I say, I need a clone to do my interviews so I can work.
Right.
I need a clone to do consults so I can work. I'm not working now, but it's important and I enjoy it. I worked earlier today and I'll probably work a little bit after this. I got to eat some dinner, but here's the point. Here's the big point. Those people who continue to distrust the digital currency system, the assets, like Theta, that's loaded with intellectual property for the next generation internet. Yep. Loaded. It'll dominate. Those people who continue to distrust, they're going to be locked into their stock, bonds, and money markets.
Yep.
And they're going to suffer 30 and 50% declines.
If not more.
I'm trying to be, I don't like to make.
I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I'm just saying,
Debbie Downer. They could lose all of their corporate bond. Mm-hmm. They could lose all of their money market. Money market is vulnerable because the banks play games with that asset in ways they don't tell you or disclose. But it's in the fine print, little font 6. Okay, the other side of the point, Ron, is that those who do trust the new digital highways and byways and off-ramps and the tools, they're going to realize big gains where it's not going to be like, well, what did you get? 5 or 10%? No. What did you get? 5 or 10-fold?
Or 20 or 100 or 1,000-fold.
I'm trying to be
again.
You take it.
It's not financial advice. It's not financial. It's not financial advice at all.
I try not to say that if you stick with the stocks and bonds and money market, you're going to lose 90%. No, you're going to lose at least 30% or 50%, or let's just say, or more. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if you stick with the digital highway and byway and off-ramp and tokens and the unique item assets that are all through this system, protected from fraud by the blockchain, a series of blockchain. I didn't know there was a series of blockchain. That's nice to know. Then you're going to realize 5 and 10-fold gains or much more. Yeah. I have a story that's told from one of my colleagues of a guy who invested about $20 million and he cashed out at $5 billion.
Wow.
In Bitcoin. Mm. These are going to be common stories. Yep. I was an investor in Lotus back in 1986. Lotus. Mm-hmm. And I sold out for a real nice 40% profit. And then it went up 10-fold. Okay, there are going to be a lot of people who say things like, well, I was in XRP and I earned 30%. And his neighbor is going to say, well, I earned 20-fold. Mm-hmm. There are going to be other stories. And I've got a nice feature in my January report. I've worked on it all this week. And I hope to post it next week, hopefully early next week, like Tuesday. I've got stories, Ron, and we were talking about Shiba. I got stories of individual crypto tokens, digital tokens mm-hmm. that are used for other big purposes. And they don't go up 5 and 20-fold. They go up 100 and 200-fold. and I've got some information and a source where I might be able to tip people off like you for a 200 bagger that's coming in the next year.
Those will be some fun. Those will be some fun tips to get.
If you get 100 bagger for a token that serves a function with a legal basis, going from west to east, 100 bagger on 10,000, that's $1 million.
Easily, yes.
Okay. So, and you know, there are going to be some that are going to be even bigger than that. And people say to me, gee, Jim, I don't understand. Why don't we hear about that? Exactly.
You're right.
Because they keep them well under a penny, and there are no eyes. There's no Security Exchange Commission. There's a lot going on that's subterranean, and these digital assets, as you call them, I still call it crypto tokens. They're under the radar, and that's where they're intended to run, under the radar. There's a lot of money moving around the globe, and Bitcoin and Ethereum made it all possible. Those are going to be in your history books as your original pioneer assets. But we're moving fast into the next wave.
It's like, you know, Bitcoin is Model T Ford.
Exactly.
Bitcoin is Model T Ford. You know, and no disrespect to the Model T Ford, but there's technology out there that's far better than the Model T Ford. But a Model T Ford today, if you had one Model T Ford, you know, they're very rare. You had a Model T Ford sitting in your garage, I guarantee that singular Model T Ford is worth a fortune, just like Bitcoin is going to be in the future.
Now, let's just think of a couple of features of the Model T. It had a crank to start the engine. You're going to have a lot more developments for digital assets and a lot more intellectual property. You had glass on the front that when it broke, it cut your face and made a disaster of the rest of your life. And it brought about the new type of what do they call it? Safety glass that actually has a layer of
film in it,
a filament of plastic type. Okay, there's going to be a lot of developments. There's going to be a lot of intellectual property. And one of them that's quite interesting, not super interesting, is the non-fungible asset, like an original Van Gogh painting. And you've got the digital version and on the blockchain, so it can't be forged. Look at the art market and all the forgeries. Look at the currency market and all the forgeries.
The NFT market, excuse me, I'm excited about this. The NFT market is going to be huge for the entertainment industry, because people are going to be able to. You have an artist who creates his own music, and he can tokenize his music on the blockchain, and he can completely wipe away the whole corrupt record industry. The pirates of the record industry, you know. And it's the same thing with the movie industry. I mean, we are coming into a time when all of this corruption by way of the blockchain, it's all going to be rendered obsolete, because everything is going to be transparent on the blockchain, and you can't conduct fraudulent transactions, get away with it consistently in a transparent system.
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. I don't think it's going to be free of crime. We're going to find new crime, but it's going to be really small. Right now, I would say 80% of the dollar-based large billion-dollar movements are full of crime. 80% are full of crime.
I hope I didn't come across as trying to say that, you know, you were going to have zero crime, because having zero crime that's just fanciful.
Well, you're going to have, like Mt. Gox, a lot of accounts vanished. There's going to be crime. You got to be careful. I'd like to mention something about counterfeiting of the dollar. I asked The Voice about 5 or 7 years ago, who's the principal offender for dollar counterfeit? And is it the $100 bill? He said, no, it's the $20 bill, and it's Iran. That's the basis of a lot of conflict.
Wow.
Between the U.S. and Iran. They're counterfeiters.
Well, how much is Iran controlled by Central Intelligence?
I don't want to get into all that. Well,
we're coming up on 2 hours anyway, Jim.
Well, it's a big topic, Ron, and
Yeah.
and it's not something I'm very well versed in.
Let's talk about
But
untold history, though.
Just remember that Ayatollah Khomeini came from France.
Right.
All right. There you go. There you go.
Well, like I said,
Okay.
we're approaching the 2 hour mark. Why don't we? Do you have anything else that you want to say, or why don't we? We've talked a lot.
I'm a blabbermouth, but I enjoy the interviews, and you're a great guy, and I want to deepen our friendship.
Yep.
And learn more about the digital assets and XRP too. You know more than I do about it, and I'm writing a newsletter, and what I try to do is I try to remain modest. I tell what I am not an expert in and what I am working toward expertise in. And I'm working hard right now because I don't see a future in the current system.
No, it's how can you? Anybody who has their head on square, anybody who has their head on straight, like you or I, we don't see a future, because why would we want to stay into a corrupt system?
Ron, there are not many people who had their heads screwed on correctly. There are not many. You talk to any fund manager, you talk to someone who's a millionaire and he's got a stock portfolio and he's trading it kind of diligently. They're not aware. They're just not aware. They'd rather not look at the algo trading. They'd rather not look at the duplicate bonds. They'd rather not look at how no corporate bonds are investment grade anymore. It's a dangerous world.
It's ignorance, and it's ignorance is bliss.
Let me give a pitch for my
yeah, please do.
My site. Okay, I now have 2 full years of the new website. It's got good graphics. I got to admit that we are a target for hacking, and causes some mild problems, but they're only mild problems. To me, it's a badge of honor that I am a truth source, truth merchant. The bad guys like Wall Street banks, Langley, they do hacking attempts. And they don't get very far, but they cause little jiggles. All right, it's a golden-jackass.com website, and we got a consult button. I got another consult offer today. I mean, an order today. I got a couple 2 days ago. It's keeping me very busy, and I'm going to have to tell them I can't get back to you for a week because I got to finish the January report. But the newsletter is focused on finance, economics, banking, currency, gold. I'd really try to focus on gold and silver, but you can't just stay with gold and silver. You gotta work on all the factors that direct attention and force on the gold market and silver market. So got the newsletter, the hat trick letter, got a new payment processor, accept all credit cards now. Does not accept PayPal for some reason. And I got the consult button. I got a sponsor button that it's used a little more than I expect. It's for large grants. Jim, I really want to help you out. You're doing great work. I got, I'm very well set in life and have been for many years. I want to help you out. And, it's $1,000 or $2,000. And they're so wonderful to see. Changes my entire day. I haven't done a public article, Ron, since June of last year. I wrote a public article about Rockefeller, an interview with Rockefeller in Hades.
I didn't see that. I'm gonna have to go look for it.
It was on goldseek.com.
Okay.
And the next day after published, my good friend Mario was killed in a car accident. And the entire event cost me $40,000. I believe that there were some very dark, evil forces that did not like my article satirizing Rockefeller, and I did not write the second article that I had planned. I just left it alone. I have not written a public article since then. I'm a little timid. I focus on the interviews.
Well, I could speak from experience. Reading your hat trick letter, I tell you what, there's a lot of good things out there for the money, but the hat trick letter is absolutely worth its weight in gold. It has put me so far ahead on a number of different fronts. Gold, silver, bonds. Just from a financial perspective, and with your accuracy of forecasts, I'm very grateful that I can even have this opportunity with you here, talking to you as a friend. But I thoroughly appreciate the work that you've done, and I've been following you for well over 10 years.
Let me make a point about forecast. This is an interesting controversy. I've actually gotten some criticism in the last several years. They say, Jim, you make a forecast, like for the gold trade note or for QE to infinity. I talked about QE to infinity in 2015 and 16. Mm-hmm. We began seeing it in 2019 and 20. And the client, a bit of a clown, a bit of an idiot, said to me, if your forecast cannot be acted upon in a profitable investment in the next 12 to 18 months, then it's an irrelevant forecast and you cannot claim it to be correct if it happens in the future. I said, well, you're an idiot. You never heard of strategic thinking. I have no more time for you because you seem really, really stupid.
Sounds like something I would say.
Okay, so I've got, when I have a forecast and I think it's imminent, and by that I mean in the next year or so or less, imminent is the next year or less, I say it's imminent. And right now I've got a forecast of XRP, and I think it's going to go up on the order of tenfold in less than a year and a half. That is an actionable forecast. The hard part is helping people to actually get a brokerage account and using it. That's not that easy because Wall Street dominates, mm-hmm. and they make it difficult. They make the application hard. And I heard from one client who said to me, Jim, if you're going to send some money to your crypto brokerage account, then don't put the word crypto in a memo on the bank wire because the bank might not send it.
That is true. Banks are not.
I heard that a while ago, and I thought that's sickening. Okay, what they're trying to do is protect their own domain.
Yes.
So sign up for the newsletter, sign up for a consult. What I have found, Ron, is in the last several weeks, I'm getting a big demand for the consults. People are getting worried. Mm-hmm. People are getting scared. And people are wondering, what do I do with this sum of money? Because if I'm not careful, I think it might vanish. Wow. golden-jackass.com. Come on down.
Absolutely. I cannot recommend it in stronger. I cannot push you there in stronger terms. You will not regret it. It's fantastic.
Let me give you a quick indication of my dedication. I had an unfortunate incident in the summer of 2017 that resulted in some swindles from my own friends, the Americans. I gave up the American as a friend. The other American moved to Nicaragua because people are trying to hunt him and kill him. I have not had a vacation since the summer of 2017. I am at this every day. I take breaks. I take a nap. I go, I take a bus trip for half an hour and visit a friend out of town. But I am working at this very hard. And I hope people can support me and assure me that I can make it through the next 3 months because I've got a big challenge.
Well, let's not even think about that, and let's just get you over that hump. So, I've
got the promised land on the other side, Ron.
Yes. Well,
I got the promised land, and it is from a promise. I've got the promised land. I got to get through a very difficult February, March.
I think February and March are going to be difficult for everybody, not just you, Jim. There's going to be
I'm sure.
It's going to be difficult for everybody.
I was talking to a multimillionaire a few weeks ago. He said, Jim, I've got obligations. I've got a couple of little businesses that are going. I've got people that I need to pay. I need to pay for the supplies. when you got a lot of money, you've got a lot of obligations because you do things with it. And then there's another really wealthy guy I know. And he said, Jim, I have been waiting 2 months for a bank wire. I said, how much is it for? Like 10 or 15,000? He said, 400,000. I can't get it to go. I got problems. And, I talk to poorer people and mention that story, and they say, well, I don't have any sympathy for him. I don't think he probably has any trouble putting dinner on the table for his family. No, but he's got problems.
Yeah, problems are problems regardless of big or small. They're still problems. Problems are always problems.
Yeah.
So,
well,
anyway.
I got problems. I got an extended family because when I was doing really, really well 3 years ago, I promised to do that and I promised to do this. And the result, if I don't continue, is that person lives on the street, or worse, that person's little girl dies.
Yeah.